2, 1.
7 things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Jamie East, and this is the Sunday 7. In today's episode, there's a new treatment to help the paralysed walk again, we get one step closer to nuclear fusion, and we hear why this Winter Olympics could be the last. But first, it was this day in 2003 that Dolly, the world-famous first cloned sheep, was put down at the tender age of 6.5. She was the first mammal cloned from an adult cell, leading to major advancements within stem cell research.
7.
It was late 2018 and images of David Z were going global. David, who'd been left paralysed by a partial spinal cord injury suffered in a sports accident, got up from his wheelchair and began to walk with the help of a walker. This was the first proof that electrical stimulation could reactivate spinal neurons and work effectively in patients to help them move once again. It was a revolutionary system developed by the teams of Swiss professors Gregoire, Coutine and Jocelyne Bloch. Fast forward 3 years and a new milestone's just been reached. Here's Gregoire.
Today, we develop new technology, more precise, that allow us to address the deficits of individuals with complete sensory-motor paralysis.
Having enhanced their system with more sophisticated implants controlled by AI software, these implants can now stimulate the region of the spinal cord that activates the trunk and leg muscles, as Jocelyne Bloch explains.
So we've designed a completely new electrode array that is wider and longer. I could implant this electrode array just under the vertebra and upon the spinal cord. And with this technology, we could access a broader region of the spinal cord in order not only to activate the leg muscles, but also the trunk muscles.
We stimulate the spinal cord with spatio-temporal stimulation pattern that reproduce the way the spinal cord is activated naturally by the brain. And to do so, we have a mini computer that the patient can carry with him and that deliver the stimulation and adjust them, synchronize them with the ongoing movement.
This technology is so precise that immediately after the surgery, the patient can walk and stand. But in order to use it outdoor, he needs to train to come with us, and it will take some more time.
Thanks to this new technology, 3 patients with complete spinal cord injury were able to stand and walk again outside the lab. Some were even able to participate in activities like swimming, cycling and canoeing.
There are so many patients around the world who need a treatment to fight against paralysis.
We have reached the point where we are ready to develop this treatment. This is why we are collaborating with Onward Medical that is developing all the technology to turn this result into a treatment available throughout the world.
In a world first in animal welfare, Norway is to become the first country to ban the selective breeding of English Bulldog and King Charles Cavalier Spaniels, citing cruelty to animals. Due to the shapes we've bred these dogs to be, they often suffer from a range of health complications, ranging from headaches and skin infections to heart failure and arthritis. But how did we get here? All dogs distantly evolved from the powerful and majestic wolves, but as man and dog became closer friends, we were picky with the ones we held dearest.
If you want, the dog to guard your livestock, for example, you just slowly select the dogs that do that a little bit better than the other dogs that you have access to. So it's called selection, and you select for the characteristics that you want.
That's Dr. Cathryn Mellersh. She runs the Kennel Club Genetics Centre, which is part of the Cambridge University Department of Veterinary Medicine. What Cathryn's describing here isn't a new technique. We've done this for other animals such as chickens and cows, and it's a process that's allowed for many of the veggies on our dinner table. As for dogs,
we being humans have bred them, literally shaped them to do the jobs that we want them to do. And so, we've got dogs that run very fast and catch things for us. We've got dogs that herd. We've got dogs that guard. We've got dogs that are just very good at being companions. All of those things. So we've selected them to behave in certain ways and to look certain ways. And until, relatively recently, most dogs worked for a living in some way or another. But now most dogs don't work for a living. They are companions, and therefore there is no selective pressure on those dogs to be very functional.
And here lies the problem with the dogs that Norway wants to ban.
The Bulldog, so that's what we call a brachycephalic breed, which has got a very flat face. So they have a lot of breathing problems. And the problem arises when a lot of the soft tissue that's inside the nose and the muzzle, that effectively there's nowhere for it to go. So it gets sort of pushed down the back of the dog's throat.
And that means there's no space in their airways. They also tend to overheat in the hot weather because panting is all the more difficult with their blocked airways. But the Bulldog's problems don't end there.
Just the overall shape of the head gives them a lot of eye problems. So they have very shallow eye sockets, which means that they can't blink very effectively. Obviously, you just got to look at it. It's very wrinkly. So they get an awful lot of skin problems. Things kind of grow in the wrinkles.
As for the Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, the big issue is their heart. Up to 90% of these dogs will develop mitral valve disease.
They tolerate it to a certain extent, but at some point of their life they will develop congestive heart failure.
It's clear the dogs aren't able to live their lives to the fullest because of these built-in health complications, but the English Bulldog and King Charles Cavalier Spaniel aren't the only ones. Cathryn thinks the flat-faced Pug and French Bulldog are also potential contenders for the list.
The condition, it's called BOAS, which is brachycephalic obstructive airway syndrome. Pugs and French Bulldogs kind of lead the charge, certainly for that condition. So I personally think it's all about education, encouraging breeders to prioritise health over looks and doing what it takes to, provide that encouragement. And then also educating the public about some of the health conditions, these dogs are likely to get. It's a very tough challenge because people like these dogs. But I guess, rewards need to be given to the breeders who do the right thing. And it's all about putting measures in place, whatever's necessary to encourage breeders to prioritise health. We've bred the dogs to look like this. We can breed them in the opposite direction if we want to. It's all about just selecting the healthy dogs for breeding.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, the first glimpse at nuclear fusion and a major step in robot surgery. Scientists in the UK have set a new record for generating energy from nuclear fusion, the same process that powers the sun, seen as a potential future source of near-limitless power. The Joint European Torus, or JET for short, is an experimental fusion machine near Abingdon in Oxfordshire. It generated around 59 megajoules or 11 megawatts of energy, enough to power around 10,000 homes in a 5-second burst. Until recently, this kind of thing was just science fiction. Talking to Sky News, Chief Exec of the UK Atomic Energy Agency, Professor Ian Chapman, explained why this is so important.
This is a quest. It matters so much to find a sustainable form of energy for the planet. And over the last few years, we've had a bunch of hurdles, challenges that we've had to overcome. The results today show that we can do that, and we can overcome all those hurdles, those challenges. That's why it's so important to us.
Fusion's potential is enormous. It's the process that powers our sun and stars. Its fuel is in limitless supply, and unlike nuclear fission, which runs conventional nuclear plants, there's no long-lived waste. With nuclear fission, atoms of radioactive metal split, releasing energy in the form of heat. With nuclear fusion, two different forms of hydrogen fuse together, making helium. This releases 4 times more energy than conventional nuclear fission. It has the potential to transform civilization, but the practicalities of making fission a viable energy source are still huge. At JET, for example, they need more energy to achieve fusion than they get from it, but it's proved the science and is developing the tools needed for the next fusion machine. Scientists say that the machine will be the final step before a commercial reactor. Fernanda Ramini is a physicist at JET, and she thinks the only thing standing in our way is commitment.
We have shown them that this can work from an engineering point of view, from a physics point of view. The challenge is there. They cannot hide. But we've shown them that this is possible. Now, take it up and take it seriously.
For years, the world of medicine's been steadily advancing the art of robot-assisted procedures, allowing doctors to enhance their technique inside the operating theatre. Now US researchers say a robot successfully performed keyhole surgery on pigs all on its own, without the guiding hand of a human. Enter STAR, the smart tissue autonomous robot. It carried out laparoscopic surgery to connect two ends of an intestine in 4 pigs. According to Axel Krieger from Johns Hopkins University, the robot absolutely smashed it.
We did a comparison study to human surgeons, both using manual laparoscopic surgery and then also current state-of-the-art robot-assisted surgery where the operating surgeon sits on the console and performs this in a teleoperated mode. And in both control studies against manual and robot-assisted surgery, our STAR robot outperformed the surgical quality. What we measured is the consistency of the spacing and placement of each sutures. So, if you want to achieve, let's say, a 3 millimeter spacing, how close to that spacing are you actually between sutures? That translates directly to burst pressure and how stable that anastomosis is after the surgery. And the second improvement that we showed is that in manual surgery, surgeons would often place a needle, then not like the spot where it ends up and pull it back out. And that, of course, causes some tissue damage that's not good for the patient. And in our robotic system, we reduced that amount of false needle placement dramatically.
Whilst this study tested the robot's ability to connect intestines, Axel says the possibilities don't stop there.
We foresee this technology to be not just applicable to suturing, where we worked in this study, but also to other soft tissue surgery. So imagine precision tumor resection with always the correct margin, but then also applications in trauma surgery, where you might have a robotic system that is not just in a hospital, but maybe in an emergency vehicle and can already initiate a life-saving care on the way to the hospital. Yeah, we are really excited about the potential to translate this not just from preclinical studies, but to clinical studies. We think this can really democratize access to the best healthcare and get consistent results to everybody. We foresee, in the next 4 or 5 years that we are able to do the first in-human studies with this technology.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, how climate change is threatening the Olympics and why you might be seeing daffodils right now, right after this.
You're listening to the Sunday 7. Follow us for your weekday news espresso, or even try our Ireland edition. It's in all the usual places. As the 2022 Winter Olympics get underway, scientists are warning that the future of the Games is under threat because of climate change. For the first time in Olympic history, the Beijing Winter Olympics is using almost 100% artificial snow. Beijing has little to no natural snowfall in the winter, and yet it's now staging 109 winter sporting events. To transform this terrain, organisers have used almost 400 snow guns to churn up and shoot out artificial snow. While organisers are able to produce snow artificially, a new report from Loughborough University warns that this could be putting athletes' safety at risk. Manager&nbsp is a Loughborough sports ecologist and co-author of the study. She spoke to VOA News.
In sports like biathlon or cross-country skiing or any of the freestyle events where an athlete is flinging themselves into the air, flipping around and falling, you would want the surface to be a little softer. And the problem with artificial snow is that it's about 70% ice compared to natural snow, which is about 30% ice. And so the surface is much, much harder.
Critics say that the climate of not only Beijing, but also previous hosts Sochi and Pyeongchang are unsuitable to host the Winter Olympics. However, even high-altitude mountain ski resorts that have traditionally hosted the Games are at risk because of climate change.
The northeast of the US, for example, eastern Canada, we are losing significant amounts of snow there. And then in places like the Rockies and the Alps, we just don't have quite as much as we used to. So the challenge moving forward is going to be, where can we put these events? And with the Winter Olympics, we're already kind of there.
Using artificial snow also causes environmental damage.
Previous research has shown that that can be damaging to local wildlife. But we also expect that, when you're creating that much snow, The energy usage is extraordinary. The amount of water is extraordinary. In this Olympics, we're expecting 49 million gallons of water to be used.
Whilst Chinese organisers promise the Games will be carbon neutral, that might not be enough to save them. The Loughborough University report warns that by 2050, fewer than half of the recipients that have hosted the Winter Olympics in the past will have viable snowfall. Plants in the UK are flowering almost a month earlier than they did over 2 centuries ago. That's according to a new study led by Cambridge University professor Ulf Buentgen. Researchers scoured over 419,000 recordings of first flowering dates for 406 plant species and compared them with historical temperature records, which have shown the climate getting warmer.
2 surprises are, first of all, this huge shift of a month rather than a couple of days. The second is absolutely strong control of temperature. So neither precipitation, rainfall, nor day length or any other environmental factor plays a role. It is pure temperature in this period between January and April. And since temperatures are increasing, we have this earlier shift.
Earlier flowering could increase the risk of frost damage and threaten other species like insects, birds and other wildlife that depend on the flowering of plants at very specific times.
There is no doubt that everything is changing. It wouldn't be a problem if everything changes at the same pace. But we believe that this is not the case. Some parts have the ability to they are more sensitive, they have the ability to respond quickly, whereas others are much slower. And this then comes to what we call ecological mismatch.
Following the results of this study, Buentgen will look at the impact of earlier flowering on the broader ecosystem. A South African company says it's made the first mRNA COVID-19 vaccine on the African continent. The company, Afrigen Biologics, says it's used Moderna data to design, develop and produce the shot at lab scale. It would mean a cheaper, patent-free version of the injection. The World Health Organization hired the company last year as one of several chosen in a pilot program to help low and middle income countries crack the code of COVID vaccines. UN health official Charles Gore spoke to Reuters and says this could help change perceptions of African nations' capabilities.
If this project shows that Africa can take cutting-edge technology and produce cutting-edge products with it, that will banish this idea Africa can't do it.
Afrigen used the publicly available sequence of Moderna's mRNA vaccine, however theirs is uniquely designed. The WHO launched the project after Pfizer, BioNTech and Moderna declined their request to share tech and expertise. They hope their hub in Cape Town will help overcome vaccine inequality, and Afrigen hope the vaccine can be tested on humans before the end of the year. This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.